Got a theme tune. Da 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 da. I'm
Perfect.
Munchables. That's Dagda. That's Excoundrel. And welcome to Bevies with the Boys. We're the boys, and this is the Bevy. Excoundrel, welcome to the show. As I'm sure you've seen on the hundreds of episodes that we've had, this is where we have a few beers and we talk a little bit about League of Legends. How does that sound, mate?
That was the most pub accent Munchables that we've ever had. You really brought yourself down to old England Munchables there.
It's the smell of it, mate. Just the smell of it alone takes
Yeah.
me back,
Oh, look at my very working class bevy right here. I'm ready to go down the pub with the boys.
Posh Maddox. So, all right, so let's do a round. We'll start with you, Dagda. What are you drinking tonight? What's your bevy of choice? Actually, I've just realised the overlays are wrong. While you tell us about your bevy, I'll swap the
Okay.
overlays around.
So I went a little bit Spanish for my beer. I went Estrella, and I don't know how to pronounce that. So it's already off to a great start. But whatever that beer is,
Galicia.
it's a Barcelona beer, and it's tasty. So that's why I got it.
Nice.
There you go.
What about
I
you,
have,
Scoundrel? What are you swirling on
Well,
tonight?
okay, so I did have a Budweiser. Then I took a couple of sips and I looked at the. It's been in my fridge a while. Like I didn't know how long it'd been in my fridge, but it'd been in my fridge a little while. I'm not really much of a beer drinker, to be honest with you. And I looked at the sell by date or the use by date, and it was February 2019, and I was like, wow, this beer is a year and a half out of date. So I decided to go and find what else I had in the fridge, and I think I had like half a bottle of Chardonnay left. So I've actually got just that little Chardonnay.
Cheeky little sip of Chardonnay. Nice one.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm on a ruby ale tonight. It is Hobgoblin Ruby Beer, which for anyone that has had Hobgoblin, you know how good it is. It's not as fancy as that, but it's pretty good. I will say it's pretty
It
good.
does
beer,
look like
mate.
a rum and
It's
coke
quality beer.
in your glass.
It does, yeah. It's very dark
It's,
ale, isn't it?
it's not as dark as this room would have you believe. It's like an amber ale. It's like a dark
okay.
amber ale. But like the lighting is suboptimal. So obviously, for anyone that's just tuning in that doesn't know who we are, I'm Munchables. This is Dagda. We're LPL casters. We're going to be doing this show on a weekly-ish basis, depending on when the gaps are in Worlds, and then following that, to talk to some guests, talk about Worlds, talk about what's going on, and talk about the guests as well. And Excoundrel up here, this is my main man from the UK scene. Kiernan, do you want to just give people a bit of a brief, like, who you are kind of thing, where you come from, what do you do, etc.
Where you
etc.
going? How's your life doing?
Take it wherever you want to take it.
I am a vagrant. No, I am. I'm just a freelance League of Legends caster, but I kind of do a lot of games. I would probably say I've been in the game, probably been in the game longer, almost as long, maybe longer than both of these guys, but have just been doing it like freelance for a very long time. I generally do a bit of hosting, so I did 2 weeks of hosting of the LEC last year, and I generally do a lot of the European Masters stuff. So I'm kind of heavily involved in the European Masters side of things on the European scene. Other than that, I'm a dad. Got a little man called Rupert, and I'm apparently a wine drinker. So there you go.
How was you did Twitch Rivals yesterday, the day before yesterday?
Did Twitch Rivals on Monday and Tuesday? Yeah, Twitch Rivals with
how was
Ender
that?
and Trouble. It was good, like really chill. Like it was obviously coming off the back of like a really serious broadcast like European Masters, where the focus is on amateur talent and up and coming teams and things like that. To go into Twitch Rivals where it's just complete meme fest it was good fun. I was unfortunately a little under the weather, and I still am a little bit under the weather from yesterday, and I was being carried pretty hard by Ender and Trouble, but it was good. Twitch Rivals is always fun, and the French team actually smurfed it.
Nice. Who's on the French team?
Casey Adam, he's like a solo queue monster. He's like a Darius Camille 2-trick player. He's absolutely insane. They let him have Camille like almost every game I saw him play. There was Robelas, which I think he's a pretty popular French streamer. Then their bot lane was, do you know what? I don't even remember who the bot lane was. Never mind. Just a load of good players, basically. Yeah. Really. Oh, Solary, who's a pretty big French streamer as well. Yeah, so just lots of really good high elo streamers. I think everybody on the French roster is challengers, so they were very good.
How did Foxdrop do? I didn't get to see any of it, but I know Foxdrop was playing.
they didn't do as badly as you would have thought from the outset.
That's
I
not a
think they
positive
came.
start to the sentence.
No, I think most people expected them to do really bad and not get a win, but I think they ended up coming fourth, like going 4-4. They had Kerberos though, and obviously Kerberos is kind of Smurf, so like
Yeah.
he was like able to like essentially take a dump on some kids, you know, like he was in the top lane. He was doing some pretty dirty things. Like he was playing like a full crit KO build, but other than that, like they actually did better than I think even they expected to. So I think they had a good result overall.
Were there any players that like stood out to you? Because obviously we had like Zazie, Karzi, all those lads that moved on. Gistic, who was Kaiser, moved on from last
Oh, do you mean the
year.
European Masters? Okay,
Yeah,
because Twitch Rivals was just like
Oh yeah.
we
quick
we
change of
segued.
conversation.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, from European Masters, who stood out to me? Zanzara in the jungle, he was really fun. Obviously, still got to hype my boy Tinks. I still think he deserves an LEC spot. I think from Ago Rogue, yeah. Ago Rogue has got a lot of like veteran players. I think Shekalad is an insanely good mid laner, like really, really solid. I think the LDLC mid laner, what the hell is his name? Viteo. Like Viteo is unbelievably good as well. Yeah, Viteo, Tinks, Zanzara, Shekalad, and obviously Ibo. Like Ibo needs a look in somewhere. This guy is an absolutely insane top laner, and I think if someone doesn't pick up Ibo for next LEC season, they're trolling.
Fair enough. I can get behind that. Ice Beast, though, I remember his silence specifically being something to be feared, which is
his everything, his everything, right? Like his Ornn was dirty. His Aatrox in the previous European Masters basically solo carried. Like he's a really good top laner. But obviously European Masters has got so much good talent. Like there's loads of great players. So.
Yeah, it's so competitive. It's actually nuts. All right, so let's talk a little bit about Worlds, if that's all right with you, gentlemen. Have you been watching? Are you both up to date on all of the shenanigans from play-ins?
Yeah,
I was struggling a little bit over the weekend, so I watched it. May not have all sunk in, but I did watch it.
So let's just kind of go through and talk about the teams a little bit, because there's definitely a couple of teams that stood out far and away above everyone else. Like, for example, Team Liquid. Where did that come from? Like Team Liquid, the NA team coming in, suddenly looked like maybe the best team in the whole of play-ins. That was nuts.
Yeah, I think they've got some incredible players in that roster, right? And obviously Impact always gets a Worlds buff. Like I don't know what it is about this man, but like he pulls out like SKT Impact when it comes to Worlds.
Yeah.
Like, the guy is an actual Smurf. And plus, like giving Broxer Graves like over and over and over again, especially when it's like a jungler that I think suits Brox's kind of style, which is essentially just sit farm, be more intelligent jungle pathing into the enemy jungle, trying to take away jungle camps and stuff like that, where there isn't as much impetus on him to like step up and like make things happen in lane. I think giving Broxer Graves over and over again, where there's less pressure on him to just do something and then kind of like play towards his laner's strengths, I think really benefited Team Liquid, and he obviously shone on that particular pick. So I think people underestimated Liquid coming into just because they were the third seed from NA, but I think they were clearly a very good team coming into the play-ins. I was expecting them to get out with relative ease, and they were actually the least surprising thing for me from the entire play-ins. I was expecting them to do well, and they did.
I think just going back to your point on the Graves, I love that the fact that because it's play-ins, like you've got 3 winning lanes essentially. Like Tactical and Core JJ looked amazing.
Yeah,
like
I was gonna say
that
Tactical.
Twitch was insane. But because you got Impact, who looks absolutely smurf in the whole thing, you got Jensen who's winning his lane. It just makes it easy for Broxah to, all right, I'm gonna kip off into the enemy jungle and I'm just gonna take everything. So like it kind of everything just fits so well for them the entire way through.
It feels like that's exactly what Broxah is comfortable in as well. Like this slow, more controlled style of play. Like Broxah feels like he's home again. It feels like, all right, I found somewhere where I can really chill out and I can like mesh with this team. Feels like they're a bunch of chill dudes now that Double Lift's out of the way.
I think the meta suits Broxah right now as well, you know? Like, I think like the farming jungle meta kind of suits Broxah in that sense. Because I think like you just stick him on Hecarim, you stick him on Graves, like he can just do camps. And then I think one of Brox's main strengths is just being able to impact like skirmishes and team fights more so than anything else. And he obviously was hugely impactful in that in the games that we saw him play in play-ins.
For sure. So who outside of Team Liquid then, who are the teams that surprised you the most across? Because you guys kind of agreed that Team Liquid, to some extent, you expected to be consistent. Who are the teams that you did not expect to pop off like they did?
PSG talent. Like it has to be. Like I had no high expectations for the PCS whatsoever coming in, and then they come in with 2 substitutes as well, and I'm like, all right, I've already written them off. I'm like, they're done, and then they just pop off. Like Kongwei and Uniboy were sick, and then the way they gelled together as well, because the most difficult part is obviously team fights. Like especially with the meta that we're in, with how you need to play around dragon fights, your team fighting has to be on point, and I expected them to just fall flat. But every single time, they just looked so damn good running off of these early leads they'd got through mid lane, and I was really surprised by how good they looked.
I think PSG is like the just purely from the fact that they had substitutes is definitely the obvious choice because of the fact that we just it was a completely different roster. Realistically, they had little time to prepare. But I think if you're going to replace anything, like replacing a mid jungle duo is usually or like replacing a bot lane duo in isolation, or replacing a mid jungle duo in isolation is usually okay because those are the units that work together the most. But even then, they replaced their AD carry, right? They replaced their AD carry because he also had issues getting to this issue. The question for me with PSG now is like, what if the visa issues get resolved for group stages? Do you change it back?
You don't want to.
I think they are resolved. I think that it is like pretty much set in stone that they have their proper team.
They were
now.
just in quarantine. Like they're back for groups.
Oh, they're in quarantine. Yeah.
So
the thing is, do you change it back? Because you did.
They don't
so
have a
well
choice.
Playing.
Yeah, they don't have a choice.
Oh, they don't have a choice.
They have to play with their original
okay.
roster. So that's where it gets really, really interesting. Is like how much of this was Worlds buff, how much of this was actually because let's just bear in mind, Machi is already in the group stage. Like this isn't even the first seed team, and then they've got subs coming from the 4th seed PCS team, and they look this fucking good. Imagine with the full roster. Like, imagine what Machi are gonna look like. Maybe PCS has been the sleeper region forever.
I think to be fair though, I think like Kongwei and Uniboy were like outliers. They were like super, super good on their team anyway. So I think like everyone who watches PCS knew when they came over that these were going to be exceptionally good. But I think it was more like how well do they gel with everyone else on the team was kind of the bigger question. But I mean, if it was me, I'd be sticking a few hot water bottles in with the lads before they go to bed, see if we can rise the temperatures a bit, just see if we can keep going that roster.
Oh no!
Yeah, I have to say. I'm sorry, go on, Kieran.
No, you go, mate. You go.
I was just gonna say, the thing that impressed me the most was that, in my opinion, they had the best set plus AP jungle combo of the entire playing stage, which. Where like that's not even that easy of a combo to pull off, especially in terms of like how it fits into a greater team. The fact that they were able to pull that off consistently is just it's so impressive for a team that basically just like cobbled themselves together and then had to wing it. Like I cannot believe how well they did. Also Legacy, really impressive performance coming out from Australia. They didn't make it in the end, but fair play to them. 3-1 in the groups is pretty damn impressive.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go on the other end of the spectrum. The surprise for me was Mad Lions. I was expect I put them in as a surefire. I put them in as a surefire get out of groups. I think I had some discussions with people from the European scene, and they were like, "Well, you do need to put it in context. Like they are the 4th European seed. It's like the first time that's happened, right? Yeah. So like, you have the 4th
our 4th seed never had any issues. You know, we were totally fine all way along.
So we had it was a 4th seed clearly, and like you have to take that in context. Like you're going up against some either like 2nd or 1st seeds in that sense from other regions. So it's 4th seed versus a lot of like 1st and 2nd seeds from those regions. So I think you need to give context to that. Plus, I think Mad Lions did a really good job during the regular season of the LEC of buffing the viewers and the fans' expectations of the roster. Like they were the team I think that looked really clean because they surprised a lot of people with a lot of drafts, a really, really solid drafting and a lot of the way that they played the game. But I think over the course of the LEC, once like European teams started to figure them out, you could quite clearly see that Mad Lions were not quite the team that they once were. They weren't the team that was steamrolling everyone through the first half of the LEC, and so they had dropped off a little bit coming to Worlds. But I was surprised. Like I actually was surprised that they took that many losses in the playing stages. I don't want to take anything away from the lads. They obviously fought their hearts out. They really tried their best, but I was genuinely surprised. I thought that Mad Lions would be a guaranteed.
I think they kind of got baited a little bit by the meta as well. Like they were the team that was constantly running Lilia, they were constantly running Evelyn, and like the Evelyn is definitely fallen off. I hate Lilia. I think she's a complete base, and she's just.
I like her cows Lilia.
Cacao Lily is good, yeah. But I mean, like, you've got like one player versus the entirety of play-ins.
Yeah.
And when you look at Mad Lions, they were constantly running this. And I think the biggest issue was in a meta that's so defined by like, hey, we need to get dragons, we need to fight, we need to do things. Like, a Lily is great when she gets that pop-off moment, and that's where you kind of look and go, oh, this is what this champion's for. But those moments are so like few and far between. I'd much rather a Graves that clears just as well, can have a little bit more in the mid jungle 2v2, and from there I can actually like pressure the game. And they kind of
You and
copped on
Ender
to
would
that.
have lots of discussion. Ender loves Lilia, so I think
Oh,
you and
really?
Ender would have
Yeah.
you and Ender would have a really long discussions about that.
Yeah.
I actually disagree with you though. I think Lilia is pretty good. I think Lilia is actually, but I think the problem with Lilia is I do think she's quite hard to play. And I think that's maybe what people are alluding to when it comes to Peanut. Like she's she's one of the few champions in the game that is mobility based in terms of her skill ceiling, right? Her entire skill ceiling comes from her mobility base and like how you utilize that. And I don't think many people have quite figured that out yet. But I actually think like Lily is insanely good.
My whole thing is like I'm coming from a region where you fight for every dragon, you fight for everything across the map, and like skirmishes are not really where Lilia can be particularly good. She ends up falling
No,
off.
sure.
So when I start looking at like, and particularly like this was, I even said it to Joe. We've had this conversation before. Munchables is like, I hate seeing Peanut specifically on Lilia because LGD is an entire team that revolves around. We need to get an early game rolling so our kind of crappy, shitty team fight engages don't fall off later on. So when I see Peanut on something like Lilia, where he's not actually able to play around Shia in the mid lane, he's not able to go for these aggressive invades because the skirmishes aren't there. That's where I start to go, all right, cool. Like, let's just move completely away from that.
Yeah.
So I think that's the biggest gripe I have with Lilia is just like the lack of early game control that she gives, especially for a team, well, LGD, and I think for Mad Lions as well, from what I've seen, especially when Shadow was like, oh yeah, he's the Lee Sin guy from LEC. Definitely having these earlier skirmish junglers would have suited him a bit more.
I definitely think that Lilia is one of these picks that inevitably is going to be played a lot of this World Championship. I don't think that the players junglers showed what she can do, like gave the pick justice. I think that if you have priority in your lanes so that you can help her, that so you can set her up so you can get her double scuttle crabs and everything like that, things like the set mid lane, things like Renekton in the top lane as well, that's when she can really shine, like especially with the set in the mid lane. But we keep on seeing a lot of people just locking her in alongside an AP mid laner that doesn't have any priority, or alongside just whatever they happen to have already drafted. And they're like, hey, Lily is really good right now, let's just throw it in. Doesn't work like that. When she's not set up correctly, she's just she's just a deer at that point.
Yeah.
And there are headlights coming.
I think Lilia is a jungler. This is something that Ender told me, and I think I kind of agree with it. I think Lilia is a jungler. Often you talk about needing like your jungler can set up laners, right, and stuff like that. But actually, I think Lilia is the opposite. You need your laners to set up your jungle, and she's one of those junglers that if you don't have hard CC in lanes, if you don't have setup in lanes, you're not going to have the impact. And like Munch said, the prio is important as well because she has an insanely quick clear speed, great AOE clear. She like has a really solid passive that you can make use of over elongated fights. But that's the point. Like it's not about like you don't unless you're post 6, you don't use Lilia to like find these big burst fights. Lilia is about keeping your passive uptime, being a nuisance, using your mobility to your advantage, and making it difficult for the enemy team to find windows. But again, I don't know if we really saw that from the play-ins junglers. But I think we'll see a lot of her in the world's main stage for sure. And I think it just once we see the teams crack the code about how to set Lilia up properly, I think you'll probably see her power level that much higher. But Graves quite clearly is going to be huge as well. Like the champion's just nutty, like really nutty, and doesn't require the same kind of investment with a comp to make Graves work, you know.
Yeah.
So
yeah, same with Nidalee. Just opening up the ability to go for like an AD mid laner is just so strong at the moment. And our clear speed is just insane. It's just like cool. Like whoever can clear the fastest, just toss him in essentially at this stage.
Yeah. The funny thing is, have you ever heard pros talk about the fact that Nidalee is kind of like crap on LAN? Like a lot of them will say, like at 0 MS, you shouldn't be getting hit by Nidalee spears. So like they always talk about the fact that you should dodge Nidalee spears on 0 MS. But we have seen quite a bit of her, like you know, in Worlds and professional play this year. So you know, I think I do think we'll see some more Nidalee. I also think like Nidalee is like one of those the most heavily user dependent junglers out there. Like you get the Nidalee players and they just absolutely crush you. Like there are just some people that are Nidalee players and they smurf it, and some people are like, Nidalee's a counter to Graves, right? or like Nidalee copes with Graves because of clear speed, then lock it in and just like int it like
They're
really
just
hard.
trying to figure out
So-
what on earth is going on. Yeah, I definitely agree with that one. And like, I think one of the things you mentioned how like Nidalee is more difficult the less ping you have because you can dodge spears. I definitely think that goes back to the conversation of not just blind picking these junglers for the sake of blind picking these junglers, but instead locking them in with things that can set up for that. Because like I'll use the two examples I used earlier with set mid and Renekton top, for example. You can set up for Nidalee to hit that spear and like pretty much guarantee that you're gonna be able to find that gank, that you're gonna be able to find that kill, and you're gonna be able to find control of the map. So I don't know. It's yeah, we'll see how it goes. But let's move away from the discussion of junglers right now, because I want to talk a little bit more about the teams and some of the teams that are a little bit sillier. Because LGD, man, what is going on? Like, what is this team? They are like, they have redefined the word inconsistent. It feels like you see a different team hitting the Rift every single game. They draft like all kinds of nonsense, and it feels like half the time their priorities change between drafts. But then sometimes they're all on one page, and it just looks beautiful at the end of a best of 5. And then the best of 1s, it's like they've never played. It's like half of them are Dota players, and they've just come in for the banter.
Yeah,
Well,
this
yeah.
theory just upset me a lot. I was just like the biggest thing for LGD was like looking at the mistakes that they'd made back at the start of the summer split versus how they kind of grew as the summer split progressed. It was like on my notes was Kramer will get caught out in weird positions, have this weird pathing error that ends up costing the game or a team fight. And I was like, oh, but when we got to playoffs, as we got towards the end of the summer split, I was like, that doesn't happen anymore. Kramer's the best. He looks amazing. And then we get to Worlds, and it's like day one, Kramer's Ash just walks off into the middle of the jungle, and Orn goes, cool, I'm gonna go kill her. It was just like there was so many of these mistakes that started to creep in. Mark missing abilities again, his engages are completely off. And even Shie, some of his plays, I'm just like, even today on the
Yeah.
Cassidy, I was like, played laning phase fantastically against Legacy. I was like, cool. And then he goes into team fights. So it's
Yeah.
like, how much CC can I get hit into the face?
It's like the crazy thing is like Shie was getting complimented like crazy, especially in that game because he was on Cassidy and he got like multi kills, right? And that's just how Cassidy is. Like you're gonna get multi kills. But so many of those fights, as you say, he just like jumps in and it's like, hey, I'm Braum. Nice to meet you. just stun after stun after stun, like just basically face plants into the whole squad. It's like, all right, well, good. And like so many, even like the best of 1s, obviously, best of 1s is best of 1s. I can kind of like allow that for LGD, but so many times today we saw them like, they may have 5 players and we may have 3, and they may be ahead in gold, but I think we could take this fight.
Like, I think the only reason that LGD won today was they were just better laners. Like,
Yeah,
if the
yeah,
OCE
I get that
had,
impression.
yeah, if OCE had been able to lay, and like that's always been, and I'm not like dissing them, that has been the chatter that I've heard from like Hysterics and a lot of the guys over in the OCE is just like the laning phase isn't quite there. But like, if they hadn't fallen behind, like in whatever game that was, they had like Camille top, Castan bot, and Ezreal bot. Or sorry, Castan mid, Ezreal bot. I was like, they were still coming out with 3,000 gold from the laning phase. Like, if OCE had been able to keep up, I think that would have been a very different series.
I think from watching the games today, you know, I know you guys were talking about the Kassadin, but like he won laning phase on Kassadin, which like clearly just shows that it was a lane difference. And I think if, as Munchables will know, having cast the UK long time before the sort of the LPL days,
The good
Munch
old
will know
days.
that the good old days of the ESL Premiership. Munch will know that the one of the strategies that can sometimes happen when you have a differential in skill level is that you just win game. You can play the game like trash, win lane, but you can play the game like trash, but just win the game because you've just like stomped everybody in the laning phase. And that's definitely the impression that I got through this series. I think LGD, when they go up against a good team, are going to get absolutely crushed if they don't sort out their macro. Like if they don't sort out how they approach dragon fights.
So let me just get this straight in my head. What you're saying is LGD are the Renegades Banditos of play-ins.
Yeah, they are the absolute Renegades Banditos of play-ins.
So what you're saying is Peanut is Max Law. Is the ultimate conclusion.
Peanut is Max Law. Yeah, absolutely.
Cadril is the mid laner.
Yeah.
Cadril is Shie. So Shie, basically,
This is
what
a
we can
weird
extrapolate
analogy
from
now.
this is that Shie has a future in broadcast, apparently.
Shie is
Schedule's been
like
smurfed.
absolutely pog. Shie is pog on the OL's analyst desk. Yeah, that's what I can conclude from this. But you know, I think I do think that today was just a clear gulf in skill of individual players, which I think you look at the roster of LGD, you look at the strength of the LPL. You're expecting that for every game from LGD and players. Like I genuinely was expecting that. You know, maybe not against some of the better teams like Liquid. I don't think they played Liquid though, did they? But I think like I think in fact LGD had the slightly easier inverted commas group. I think when we looked at the players groups.
Well,
but,
it's actually interesting. 'Cause I just want to quickly touch on that topic when you bring it up, because that's what I think. That's what I thought on paper as well. But when you look at it in retrospect, 3 of the teams out of Group B made it to the group stage. Only 1 team from Group A made it. So maybe it was the harder group, and it was just chaotic because they were the better teams. Like, where does Supermassive and Legacy and Mad Lions fit in that conversation?
I agree with you, by the way. I actually agree with your assessment there. But I think when I thought about coming into these groups before we even seen the game played, like my expectation was LGD should just be absolutely shit stomping every single game they played, just through pure player diff. Like not even just like jungle diff or mid diff, like every diff. Like it should have just been every diff in for LGD. I think
League
in that
diff.
group. But I think that's why we actually had some of the most exciting play-ins I've ever seen. Like, frankly speaking,
sure.
I've had some play-ins in Worlds where I just haven't even like particularly watched or not been that bothered because I'm like, like I'm not that I don't care that much. This Worlds play-ins, I was genuinely hooked. Like every game was interesting, just because of the relative power level of certain regions. Just seems to have exponentially grown.
Yeah.
Like Supermassive, like where the fuck did that come from? Like Turkey is like classically always been bad at the world's playing stages, but I mean,
honestly, like,
Arma's a beast.
Yeah,
like,
Arma is hilarious, dude, by the way. You see him on
Arma.
the player cam while he's playing. He flashes
yeah.
for the double kill on Malphite, who was robbed by like 2 HP, and he's just like giggling away to himself for the camera.
Dude, I picked Armut for a fantasy league thing I was doing. I was like, I picked him because I was like, well, I have this many points left, and this guy he's the best person I can afford with my points. And I did not have expectations coming. He is the biggest point earner on my entire fantasy roster. I had Peanut, I had Kazi, I had Uniboy, and I had Kaiwing. Uniboy and Kaiwing kind of smurfed it a little bit as well. But Armut single-handedly like carried my team, and he's the cheapest player on my roster. This guy is a turbo smurf, like absolute turbo smurf.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, it's definitely been an interesting one. So I wanna round out the conversation of play-ins here, and I want to ask you guys, who was your best player of play-ins and who was your worst player of play-ins? And you can have a second to think about it if you want, but I want to kind of nominate some players and figure out where we want to put them on the scale, because one of the players that I think deserves a lot of praise coming out of play-ins is Tactical on Team Liquid. I think the guy leveled up coming into Worlds. He was already looking great in playoffs, but he, in my opinion, looked like the best player on Team Liquid, and he is so willing to make plays, which is such a rare commodity for AD carries, especially when things like Ashe and Jhin are in the meta. But I love that he's bringing out the Twitch. I love that he's happy to make himself known on that Twitch as well and make plays against these other teams that have reputations, that are big teams. He's happy to be the carrier and step up, and I think he deserves a medal. I cannot wait to see him in group stage.
This is really hard. There's like, at least for best player, like there's a few, like even looking at 80 carries again, like I thought Gadget on UOL was really, really good. I thought he smurfed.
Yeah.
Gadget would have been the guy I said second, I think.
For me, yeah, Gadget's insane. No Man's for me, I think, is what I was pointing towards. I think No Man's has been really good for Unicorns of Love. That's the guy I'd probably looking to highlight. I was looking at Unicorns of Love on the same lines as Dagda. I think like they have been an incredibly good team, but No Man's for me definitely is the guy that I think I'd be pointing my fingers towards as being the best player. Worst player, I hate to say it, Shadow. Shadow for me has been. I don't like the worst player award. I feel like we're crapping on people a little bit, but Shadow has been disappointing for a while in the LEC, given that he came from the European Masters last year and he was absolutely insane. He's a little bit like Leader for me. Like, just hasn't had that level of performance yet,
Mm.
and I just think that he's kind of tapered off a little bit towards the end of LEC, and I just don't think his Worlds performance was
I do
particularly
think
a highlight for him.
one thing to mention with Shadow is that he's obviously a rookie coming into this year.
Yeah,
He's
yeah,
spent the entire year under COVID, so he's been playing from home. And then
Mhm.
his not his first stage games ever, but like stepping onto the big stage in a giant green room, by the way. It's not even like a normal stage. He's in an AR environment, right? So he's in basically a giant green screen. And he has to play on the stage in a country he doesn't know after 2 weeks of quarantine. And he's a representative for the European region. Like, that's a lot of pressure. I'm not
Oh,
surprised that Mad
I
Lions
completely
struggled
agree.
and Shadow
Yeah, I
struggled.
completely agree with you, and I think I think given context, it's quite clear that there are reasons why performance may not have been optimal. But I just, if I had to choose someone, and you wanted someone, he would be the person that I personally was. And I think because I'm also quite proud of the European region, obviously, really wanted Mad Lions to do well.
Yeah, yeah.
But I just think like on that roster in particular, Shadow did not have the standout performance for me. But like I said, I don't want this to be Shadow is shit. Like it's not
Yeah.
that at all. Like there is quite clearly contextual reasons as to why performance may not have been amazing, but I just don't think that Shadow had the best performance ever for Mad Lions. But for me, the player that I loved was No Man's. I think he never heard of him before, never really watched the region. But now I will be. Now I think he's definitely got some
he's no
spark.
longer no man's. He's now some man's.
Some man's. There you go.
He's some man for one man.
What were you going to say, Dagda? I think I interrupted you before.
I think if Excoundrel's going to go with the European one, I'm going to go with the LPL one. I think Mark has been the most disappointing for me. Like, even in playoffs, I had him rated like the second weakest support coming into playoffs. And I think he's reverted back tenfold. Like, bunch of Zenith Blades were missed, bunch of Solar Flares were missed. It kind of, even the early game pressure that we saw out of him in the LPL, where he'd actually get out and start roaming around that level 4, level 5 mark, just wasn't happening either. So I think from his position, but also his positioning was just like in some fights I'm just like looking at him going, why are you there? Like, of all places that you need to be right now, getting caught out in the river is not where you're supposed to be. So I think honestly, from my perspective, Mark has kind of been the one that's taken a massive step down, and I had really high hopes for himself and all of LGD after they took such a massive leap forward in playoffs, but it just seems to have all fallen apart now.
Fair enough. I'm with it. Well, who was your best player, Dagda?
I'm gonna go with Gadget. I
Yeah.
think Gadget really impressed me. Yeah.
All right. So I said Tactical as my best player, but I kind of want to change that because I want it. Well, no, I want to give an honorable mention at least. Tay on INTZ, by the way. Tay's a beast. Like, that guy is in elo hell because my worst player is on the same team. Envy, my god, man. I don't know if it was pressure. I don't know what it was. There were so many fights where like he was on Zoe and he was just missing everything. And Tay is there like 9-1-4 or something, like smurfing 1v9ing, and Envy's there like he's just gonna hit one paddle star and they win the game. And he's like, oh, I hit W instead of Q. Sorry guys. It's like,
God.
bro, come on, man. Like, just hold it together. Hold it together for Tay. That's all I'm asking. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure. Like, I don't know if Envy is a rookie player or something like that. It definitely felt like nerves or jitters or something. But yeah, it just did not perform.
I kind of want to give a shout out to V3 as well. Like, I know their laning phase wasn't amazing, but I was actually really impressed with their team fights. I thought their team fight coordination was super, super strong. The way they set up those engages, the way they had vision and stuff like that, I thought was really good. And although, like, Boogie kind of got caught out because he was like, oh, well, I'm Elise, and his champion pool wasn't quite there, I think overall, like, you could see the ideas were there as to how we're going to set this up, how we want to start our wins going. Like, okay, we're going to go for this top lane dive. Now, the coordination, the execution wasn't quite there, but I still like for Japan kind of coming in as like a very new region where they're trying to get themselves set up. And a lot of the players aren't even, challenger or grandmasters. There's like a few D2 players and stuff like that in there. I was really impressed with how they did hold their own against a lot of the teams that obviously are super, super high rated.
Yeah, I agree. I think V3, fair play to them. It was always going to be a difficult task. They were certainly not a favourite coming in. I think they had an okay showing. They got themselves, what was it, 1-2 wins? One win.
I think it was just one win, yeah.
But they beat, look, they showed up. they had themselves a win. Like, fair play to them. And they were in a difficult group. Let's bear in mind, PSG Talon came out of the woodwork. Unicorns of Love, everyone was hyping up before they even came in, and they lived up to that hype. And then there's LGD in the group. Like, it was never going to be an easy task for V3. Either way, let's round out the conversation about play-ins. Let's move on, because I want to talk about the group stage. Because the group stage is coming up, boys. And this is going to be a good one. Because the groups are fucking stacked. Holy shit. Like, there are two groups that I think are, like, fairly easy to predict. One of them is Group B, because you've got Damwon and JDG. And, like, if they don't come out of the group, I think it's an upset by default.
Mm-hmm.
And other than that, I mean, Group D as well, you've got Top Esports you expect will definitely make it out. But, like, Group A, you've got G2, Suning, Liquid, who look amazing in play-ins, Machi, who you have to assume are better than PSG, and PSG was smurfing play-ins, so how good are Machi? Question mark. You've got Group C with Fnatic, Genji, LGD, TSM, like, and then Group D, Top Esports, DRX, FlyQuest, Unicorns of Love, who also smurf play-ins. Like, this group stage is incredibly difficult to call.
Yeah, I think this is a very stacked group stage. I would say, like you said, I think Group B, like, probably in inverted commas, one of the easiest to call. I do have questions about the relative strength of Korea as a region. I do genuinely have questions. I think that's a difficult thing to assess, given that we haven't seen much of it on a world stage this year.
Mid-season cup, just
Didn't look good for them. It didn't look good.
So yeah, I think, like, Korea always look amazing in their isolated region, but then I think export that to a world stage. I'm just interested to see how they fare.
Mm-hmm.
I still think they're going to do well. I still think they're going to be good. But I just think the Chinese style of play is just going to absolutely batter most teams.
I think Damwon is going to do really well. I think Damwon look exceptional.
Sure.
But I think that it's Damwon here, and then there's the rest of Korea here. Because Damwon's playstyle is like dominant lanes, right? Damwon are like the IG of Korea, basically, where they're just like, we're better than you, and we're just going to win lanes and then win game, right? And then skirmish and then team fight, etc., etc. They're kind of like Top Esports, honestly. And that style works against Chinese teams. That style can match aggression because you're not gonna let them get leads, and you're gonna be able to match them in those skirmishes. But the rest of the Korean teams don't play that style, and based on Damwon's success with that style, I don't know how well the rest of the Korean teams are going to be able to match up against some of the LPL teams, and even EU teams like G2, for example.
Yeah, I agree. I still think DRX will actually do well. I think they're also a team that likes to scrap. They're a team that likes to kind of play a lot of that more fight-heavy style. And I think they'll do reasonably okay. But I think it's interesting to see how, like, Gen G do, because, I mean, like, I know it wasn't a very... I know a lot of people kind of look at mid-season cup and don't really say, oh, well, look, it was just a whatever tournament. But I still think when we get to see the clash and the different styles meet up between LPL and LCK, it was interesting to see, like, which teams could actually hold up. I think Gen G definitely struggled a lot more just because of that aggression, because Gen G's style is so much more, oh, we're going to control, we're going to get our vision down, we're going to deny you that vision so you don't feel safe approaching. And then you look at Top Esports, who's like, I don't care, we're going to fight anyway, we'll just walk in here. I think they kind of got caught off guard, so maybe they're more prepared for it coming into Worlds. But I think Gen G, just with teams that aren't as calculated and slow as some of the Korean teams are, I think they might struggle.
I'll tell you what, who I am really worried for. I'm actually worried for Europe in general. I last year I had G2 and we were like, yeah, like G2 absolutely smurfed it. And obviously they did really well, made it to the finals, and it was a really, really, really fun. I mean, they got smashed, but I think regardless of that, they made it to finals. This year I'm looking at Fnatic, I'm looking at Rogue, and I'm looking at G2, I'm thinking, I don't know how confident I feel. Now, maybe that's a good thing. Maybe the lack of confidence is maybe a good thing. I don't have high expectations for us, but like, I genuinely am a little concerned about Europe's chances this year. I don't think our region got stronger in 2020. I think every other region, including North America, has leveled up a little bit, and I don't know if Europe has done the same thing. We've been very scrappy. I don't think our games have looked clean at all, especially in our playoffs. I am just a little worried for Europe overall. I think the first few games are going to be quite telling. The first week especially is going to be very telling for me about how we're going to expect. I'm expecting G2 to get out of groups. I am expecting G2 to get out of groups. But for Fnatic and Rogue, I'm a little concerned, genuinely.
So I think that I definitely think you're right in that, like, relative strength based on looking at the playoffs from the various regions. I think that Europe looks weaker than they have in the past. However, I do think that, first off, Fnatic leveled up in a big way going into playoffs. Like, looked better and better every series until that final series, but I don't think that that's like them. I don't think that was them getting worse. I think that was G2 getting better and like reading Fnatic better. And I also think that that's kind of a little bit of just G2 versus Fnatic. It does feel like Fnatic have just something going on where they can't seem to beat that team. Yeah. So I do think that Fnatic especially, obviously I think G2 will make it out of their group. I think that's going to be scrappy, but I think they'll make it out. With Fnatic, their group is actually fairly simple in my opinion. Like, when you look at, like, LGD clearly suck in best of ones. Like, I'm kind of going to be surprised if LGD make it out of Group C, honestly, the way they looked in play-ins. Even with the performances in best of fives, I think LGD might just be doomed. Genji as well, I agree with Dagda. I think that they're going to struggle with a higher pace of game. And I think Fnatic and TSM are probably the teams to make it out of that group, because Fnatic don't suck in best of ones, do always show up when it comes to worlds and international tournaments. Like, I think that Fnatic is a team and an organization that has consistently performed when it comes to the World Championship. And it, like, there have been years in the past where Fnatic do look shaky coming up to Worlds, and then they make it to Worlds and they're like, boom, time to fucking show up, right? They seem to do it every year, like, and I don't think that that's coincidence. I think it's like Astralis and CSGO, where they just consistently perform every single time, even if people don't expect him to. I think Fnatic has a similar thing going on in League of Legends. So I think G2 and Fnatic both should look incredibly good.
I think people are kind of sleeping a little bit on North America as well. Like,
yeah.
I know obviously there's all the NA memes, there's all the kind of stuff that goes on, but like, I didn't get to watch a huge amount of games, so I'm not going to claim I'm an expert by any sort of stretch of the margin. But definitely when I looked at them, I was like, strong early game. They know how to play the map. They know how to push advantages. Like, they've got a lot of unique picks as well, like the Zillion and stuff that you don't see a huge amount in other regions. Or maybe I'm just wrong with that, but at least I think they've definitely got their own style.
Yeah.
And I think especially when you look at like Team Liquid and how solid they looked now, play-ins, whatever, I still think they look good. I have a feeling that we're going to see a lot better of a performance from North America this year than we have from other years, especially because I kind of agree with Excoundrel a bit. I think Europe has taken a little bit of a step down, especially when I look at like G2's bottom lane. Perks and Mickey have been like feeding their asses off in so many of their series that I just go like, what is going on there?
It has been like Caps carrying the day a lot of the time for G2, and Jankos has not had a good season. Like, Jankos really has not had a good season, and there has been several games in playoffs where Jankos just kind of inted it straight up. I do think he comes out clutch when he matters, but I don't think Jankos has had the best season.
I think an extra thing as well with Jankos is Jankos doesn't really do that hot on carry junglers. And guess what's meta right now? It's all
farming carry junglers. Yeah. It's not. I don't think the meta is particularly suited to Jankos. I will say that Wonder has had a resurgence, because there was a point in like second half of LEC where Wonder was not looking great, but he's had a bit of a resurgence in the playoffs. Yeah, I agree with you. Your assessment, Dagda. I think the bot lane of G2 is a little bit I think the mid lane for Fnatic has been very I'm not entirely. I think Selfmade's been amazing, by the way. I think Selfmade said it actually had a really good season, but I do think Nemesis has struggled. I think that's why they maybe brought Magi across as a sub, because they know that Magi has the potential to just, especially when it comes to like, I know Nemesis has got like a really specific champion pool that works well for him, like the things like the TF, etc. But you put Magi in, you know you're going to get a blinder Orianna, you know you're going to get a good Corki, like you know what Magi provides when it comes to the mid lane. So I think that's maybe why he's there for Fnatic, and I'm excited to see whether that actually comes out as something they consider when it comes to. Oh, Munch is just chilling.
Hello.
But I agree. I agree with Dagda. I think TSM especially are an interesting choice, because they do have really interesting drafts. They someone like jammed adrenaline straight into their veins for the NA playoffs. So I am actually genuinely excited to see TSM because I think people are sleeping on NA just a little bit, and I think we meme them a lot, but I do think the region has got a bit better this year.
If Team Liquid is anything to go on, then TSM theoretically have to be really good, right? Because Liquid looked, in my opinion, they just looked like the best team in play-ins. Aside from maybe UOL, we never saw them face off, so who knows? But like they look super clean, super consistent. And if TSM is a team that beat them pretty handedly, like you have to assume that TSM is going to be exceptionally good. Also, Bjergsen is having like a renaissance. Like he kind of felt like he was going into retirement mode, and then he's come back in, and now he is popping the fuck off every single game. Like it feels like he is dominating again. And as you said, the Zillion pick that's like NA specific meta. Well, it's more like Bjergsen specific meta, honestly. The way he dominates on that pick, it's honestly insane. And like he was getting 5 bans every single game in playoffs, and he was still dominating the mid lane. That says a huge amount about how good he is looking right now.
Yeah, the big unknown for me in that whole thing is Spica, the jungler. Just, and that's not at me going, oh well, I don't know how he's gonna play or how he's gonna show up, but it's more I haven't seen a huge amount of him. I haven't watched a huge amount of TSM games, but like just looking at his match history, there's a lot of like set in there. There's a lot of that Shen, Olaf's, and stuff like that. So he's kind of been steering away from what I can see from the more carry oriented junglers. Although there's a lot of Graves in Italy in there, kind of further down, but a lot of losses on those champions. So I don't know. I think when we're starting to see a shift over towards how important the jungler is right now, whether it be a Lilia or Graves or Nidalee or whatever the hell you want, and seeing the likes of the Ornn rise up, I think TSM maybe it'd be interesting to see because I think Broken Blade can definitely play much more of the tanks. But I'm curious to see how Spica holds up on an international stage. Like, how is his jungler and our jungling? And that's not me kind of going, oh well, this is the new guys come in or whatever. I actually don't know a huge amount about him, so I think that's the biggest question mark for me. Is like, I know the bottom lane is solid, I know the mid lane solid. I've seen Broken Blade, I know what he's capable of. Spica is just genuinely unknown for me.
Yeah, I think he's been performing decently. I'm certainly not an expert on the LCS. In fact, honestly, I don't think any of us are experts on the LCS. Let's just move the conversation on because I feel like at this point, I've had a beer and a half, so I'm just going to start pretending that I'm an expert on the LCS if we keep this conversation going. So
yeah, I think I do watch LCS, but I haven't watched. It's that my least watched region out of all of the major 4 regions, like the LPL, the LCK, Europe, and LCS. Just mainly for timing because I'm usually in bed and asleep by the time
also,
the LCS comes in.
Partly just the fact that like they have been pretty appalling previously in international tournaments, so I'm kind of like, if I've got a few hours spare from LPL, which region am I going to watch? LCS is not the top of that list, you know.
With LPL, time is a premium. So.
Yeah, exactly. There's not much of that time. So let's go through the groups here because we're I think we're like 45 minutes in. Yeah, 47 minutes and 56 seconds into the show, out of an estimated 60 minutes ish. So let's go through the groups here and let's talk predictions a little bit if you guys are happy to do so. And let's just go straight down, shall we? So we'll start with Group A, and I'm quite happy to go first if you guys want. If you want a minute to think, because Group A, I think, is honestly Group A is spicy, man. Like, there's a lot of teams in here that really could show up. I mean, Machi, I already mentioned. I don't know Machi super well. I don't know necessarily what to expect from them in terms of like where they stand. But if PSG is worse than them, you have to assume Machi is going to be able to perform. But Liquid looked amazing in play-ins. G2, you expect to step up for Worlds. And then you got Suning, literally the best team to ever exist.
I love the way you're giving this massive spiel of, yeah, they look so good. They're great. It's like, he's going to put Suning out. Like, it's going to be Suning first, 100%.
So I am actually not going to be biased here, Dagda. I am putting G2 first because I think G2 is going to level up for playoffs. I think that even if Perks and Mickey sometimes isn't, I think that they can just play Jhin and Ashe and weak side bot lanes, and that's fine. And Ezreal's back in the meta, so Perks can just play Ezreal. Be super safe in the bottom lane while the rest of the team plays. And Suning's biggest weakness, in my opinion, is Angel in the mid lane. G2's biggest win condition is how dominant Caps is. I don't think Angel can match up to Caps. And so, just on that mid difference alone, I think that it probably leans the way of G2. However, bot difference is for Suning, jungle difference is for Suning. Top, I would say, is pretty neutral between Wunder and Bin. I think both of them can have insane pop offs. So, it's a difficult matchup to call. It could even go 1-1, but I'm going to give the edge to G2 just on basically Caps factor alone.
I think I'm going to go Suning G2 Liquid Matchy. I think Suning will beat G2 genuinely.
My 3-4 is Liquid Matchy too.
Yeah. So I think Suning and G2 get out. Group B, I'm actually going to have to rattle through my munch because I have an absolutely livid crying baby. You might be able to hear it.
No
Group B, I have got. I'm going to say Dam. I'm going to say. I'll say Damwon then JD. I think Damwon then JD, and then it doesn't matter about the next two. Group C is really hard to call. Yeah, so no, I love Larson, but that is a tough group.
Yeah, that was rough.
I think Group C, that's really interesting. I really don't know. I really don't know how to call. I really don't know how to call Group C. I think I'm gonna say Fnatic than TSM. I'm gonna go Fnatic than TSM. I genuinely think TSM have got a good shot. I think LGD. I'm a bit lukewarm about LGD. I especially since they kind of entered most of the playoffs. And Genji, I'm not sold on Genji as like a really strong roster. So I think maybe Fnatic then TSM. And Group D, I'm going to go top then DRX. I don't think FlyQuest and Unicorns at level make it out of the group, despite how well UL did in that group.
Interesting. Dagda, where are you
at? So I'm going to start Group A. I'm actually going to...
If you've got to go, mate, feel free to.
I'm going to pop up, guys. I loved being here. You guys are beautiful, and I love you both. And I will see you both very soon.
It's great to catch you, man.
Can you leave the thing on? Just mute your mic or something, so it doesn't mess up the overlay.
I will turn off the camera and mute my mic. Yeah.
Perfect. Cheers, mate. All right.
Oh,
it swaps me and him around.
Are you or my Excoundrel?
Wait.
I'm Excoundrel now.
Okay. Sorry, my bad.
I can stop the overlays. It's all right, mate. Go tend to Rupert. Rupert is more important than I am. All right. Well, Daddy Excoundrel has gone to deal with little old Rupert, who is his spawn. So in the meantime, me and Dagda will finish off the conversation. So let's just meander on through here, Dags, because you and I, we've had conversations over beer before, once or twice.
A lot.
So yeah, quite a lot actually. Let's start with Group A then. I'm going G2. No, I'm not. I'm going Suning. Suning G2.
Knew it.
Liquid match. Even with Caps in the picture.
So I'm actually not sure, because I think so much of this comes down to draft. Because when I'm thinking about it, I'm like, look, you know what? I do agree by far Caps is better than Angel, but I think there's a lot of mid laners right now that just neutralize the matchup. Like if you think of Zoe, Orianna, Syndra, even the Azir as well. There's a lot there you could just, and Angel's very good on Syndra, Zoe, Azir.
Yeah.
So honestly, I think overall he can probably neutralize that matchup. And then I agree with you. I think it starts to come down to, well, how do the other lanes perform? I think Wunder and Bin, that is going to be the bloodiest top lane matchup I've ever seen. I am so excited to see that one go.
I can't wait.
Yeah. I think actually it comes a lot down to the bot lane for me, because I don't think Quanfeng and Sword Art with the style that they play are actually going to be able to punish Perks and Mickey. And then when they get to team fights, I think Perks and Mickey actually potentially could do a lot there. But I think when we come to the jungle matchup, overall, I think that we're going to see SOFM just beating out Jankos. This meta just doesn't seem to suit Jankos at the moment. So I kind of give a slight edge to Suning there. But then when it comes to Team Liquid, I genuinely think Core JJ and Tactical destroy Perks and Mickey X.
I agree.
I think you actually as Team Liquid, Impact, tank player, cool, I'm on Shen, I'm on Ornn, I'm having a fantastic time that top side. And then from that point, well, I think you just win bot side, and again, you neutralize mid lane. And I think that's going to be the big thing is how much impact can Caps actually have? Because otherwise, I actually my kind of favorites, honestly, looking at it, are potentially Sunni Team Liquid G2. Like with how well Team Liquid played in play-ins, like
Oh.
if they can keep up that level and if they can keep that jungle pressure going, it could potentially be an upset here
Are you
for
going to put
2
that in your pick'ems, mate? How
I think
confident
so.
are you?
I think
You're going
so.
to put G2 getting knocked out in groups in your
Yeah.
pick'ems. Damn.
Like I was
That's
not impressed with
spicy.
when we watched the LEC the finals
Yeah.
together. I was really disappointed in G. We actually were talking about it, like I was
They
really
did look
disappointed there.
pretty shit.
Yeah. But honestly, I was like, you know what? Like, and I love G2. Like, I've got their jerseys at home. There's a photo of me at the LEC in like
Yeah.
G2 swag
I
with
got the
all the
MSI
Irish flag
jersey.
waving. Yeah, and but honestly, I was really disappointed in them. They don't seem to have the same. Like the thing that was always with G2 was you could never write them off. Like any game, it was always they were kind of like IG for LPL. It was like there's always something. It's like Perks is going to be on Rise. He'll like find some play in a side lane, or Caps will make this like just insane outplay that'll
Yeah.
bring them back. Wonder like, there'll be something. Even Mickey X would have these insane engages that they would just bring it back off of clean, crisp shot calling, and it just doesn't seem to have it anymore. They just whatever way it's going, whatever this meta is done and just shaking them a little bit, they just don't quite seem to have that same X factor that they used to.
I don't know, man. I can't commit to that like you can.
Yeah.
I applaud your commitment to saying GT won't make it out of groups because that's a bold statement.
Yeah.
I think
I'm gonna
that,
get so much hate. I am
I think
ready
that
for my Twitter to just
yeah, all 15 of our viewers are going to be furious at you. But like, I think that when it comes down to it, it's the same thing that I said for Fnatic before. Like, I think that this is a team that really can level up in a big way when it comes to when it matters. I think that the final against Fnatic shows that, in that Fnatic won the previous best of 5. A week later, G2 crushes them. Like, and Perks and Mickey X 2v2'd Reckless and Hylissang. Like, the level
Yeah, true.
of
Yeah.
required improvement for that to happen is huge. So I would say that, like, regardless of the scrims that got leaked on Reddit and all that, because, you know, that's
Scrims
just
don't
whatever.
matter. At the end of
It
the day.
is
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
I think that G2 will level up. I think I was saying too bold of a statement to say G2 will come first, because I think that Huanfeng Sword definitely win 2v2, and I think that SOFM outclasses Yankos right now. And I think Bin Wonder, honestly, who knows which direction that goes? I'm just excited to watch it. I don't even care who wins.
I think it's so hard to call without like the draft in front
Exactly.
of you. 'Cause, like
It's so
even
much
looking
about
at
counter matchups. It's so much about
yeah,
counter matchups.
but even
But
down
like
to like
Wonder bringing the
sorry.
Nico top, for example, that completely shakes things up. But yeah, I don't know. Cap's definitely way above Angel, but Angel's pretty good at neutralizing the mid lane, so we'll have to see. I think we should move on because we talked about Group A for a little while now. So let's talk Group B then. Damwon, JDG, PSG, Talon, Rogue. I mean, should we just talk about Group C? Like,
yeah, I mean, look, it's
JDG,
JDG.
Damwon,
Yeah.
Rogue, PSG.
Yeah, I had this on Twitter. I think a lot of people, well, maybe not a lot of people, but I think definitely people are sleeping on JD Gaming.
Oh, for
Maybe
sure.
they're not doing so hot in scrims at the moment, whatever it is, but like this is a team that is insanely good. Like their engages are the best in the LPL. Like top esports is amazing, but JDG are the best team fighters in the LPL. Blue Mao is insane, Zoom is insane, and I think this is the meta that suits Kanavi down to a T because a lot of the discussions we had, like say for Lily and stuff like this, is like, okay, well, you have to have lanes that play towards your jungler, and that is what JDG did in spring. It's what we saw a lot in their summer split finals as well. And then also looking at other champions like Lee Sin, the Graves and stuff like that, where you can play more towards the lanes as well. That works perfect too. So I think JDG are the most flexible when it comes to jungle, and I think right now with the way the world's meta is shaping up, that just suits them down to a T.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. I do think that Damwon versus JDG is a super interesting matchup. I think that, unfortunately, for PSG Talon and for Rogue, I just think they're outmatched. they also both kind of want to play the same style that JDG wants, but JDG is going to be better at that style. So, and I think Dam1 is very similar to Top Esports, and if the final is any indication, then that style theoretically beats what JDG brings to the table.
Yeah.
So I think that, I don't know, I think that's a clean cut top two, bottom two, unfortunately, because I think that Rogue and PSG are both really good as well, but I just think that this group is just impossible.
Yeah. And I think as well, definitely from PSG, the question mark is, hey, well, as weird as this sounds, how do they look with their normal roster? You know, how do they do without the subs in?
True.
But,
if this is them with subs.
Yeah, exactly. And then for Rogue as well, I think when we looked at playoffs, Finn kind of got found out a little bit. We kind of realized, hey, look, you know what? He doesn't have the biggest champion pool. So
yeah, against
when you got a
Nuguri
player
and
like
against Zoom.
yeah, like that's going to be exploited massively. So I think that's where my biggest worry lies for both those squads is kind of how do they shape up. But the biggest question for me is like who is one and who is two. Like I think Damwon and JDG, like I think they go 1-1. So this is going to be potentially going down to like a tiebreaker for first second again. Like
Could be.
I actually think that is incredibly close to call.
I think blue side, or yeah, I would assume blue side wins basically.
Yeah.
But I actually think that this group, because of the way the best of one works, I think that whoever gets blue side second probably wins the matchup. Just in that I could easily see in their first game against each other, red side could win just off of like we know something you don't know or whatever.
Yeah.
And then the second time around, you know the meta a lot better. You know the teams you're against a lot better. You can have a much more calculated version, and blue side seems to be significantly stronger right now. So whoever gets blue side second, I would give probably like a 60-40 advantage to in this group for first seed.
That's a really good point. I never even thought of that. Was just like the stuff that you could like, even like looking at Yigao. I mean, obviously we're going to talk about LPL a little bit more because we're more familiar with it. But at least Yigao in the finals, bringing out the Lucian, I would have never in a million years thought that Yigao would have been able to perform. Like I knew he could play Lucian, but not to that level.
Yeah.
So I think definitely like the upset or the surprise factor you can bring out for a red side draft, especially in the first couple of rounds against.
I'm ready for his Vayne mid. Let's see it, Yago. All right, let's go to Group C then, because I feel like we've to some extent exhausted that conversation anyway. And we are getting beyond the hour mark now. We're 2 minutes past the hour, Dagda. We're late.
Oh, Jesus, I need to go to bed.
I know it's 8:15. I've got nothing to do tomorrow. Group C. Let's talk about Group C, because fucking hell, Group C. Fnatic, Gen.G, LGD Gaming, and Team Solo Mid. So we have a Worlds finalist, technically Worlds champions in that Gen.G used to be Samsung Galaxy, Worlds group stages in LGD, and Worlds group stages in TSM. So, yeah, a lot of talent in this group. And I definitely think this is the most difficult group to call out of all of them. There are not clear favorites in the same way in this group. I think that Fnatic is the only team I'm willing to call a favorite in this group, honestly.
I think this group, I know Excoundrel was kind of saying that Gen.G don't get out. I'd be very surprised if Gen.G don't manage to get out. I still think they're an incredibly strong team. And the only question mark for me is like Fnatic and a lot of their. Now, again, I'm not an expert. I didn't watch a huge amount of LEC, but at least in the playoffs that I saw and a lot of the games that I saw, Fnatic kind of tossed the game into chaos. And then they were like, okay, cool, we managed to wrangle our way back on top. And that is definitely a strategy that can work. But I think against teams like Gen.G, that becomes very difficult to do. And with how strong BDD looks, how strong Ruler looks as well, it kind of matches Reckless in the bottom lane from Ruler's perspective. But I think BDD definitely has control of that mid lane. And when Klid has like BDD who's able to control that mid lane, I think that's when he really pops off. So I think Gen.G will probably come out first in this group, and then I think it'll be Fnatic. I think LGD finish last, at least with the performance that they're having at the moment, and maybe TSM
in best of ones as well.
Exactly.
LGD is doomed in best of ones, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the thing that Gen G has is like, I mean, Crimson Cyclist has said it in Twitch chat. You can't count out Ruler. I think BDD and Ruler both are the kinds of carries that. I mean, I said this at MSC, and I'll say it again. I still feel the same way. Like, these two guys, when it comes to those clutch moments, when it comes to backs against the wall kind of situation, these are the kind of players that you can believe will just make it happen. Like,
I think they're generation defining, right?
yeah.
It's like there's a couple of you kind of see the generations of League of Legends. And I think like BDD, Ruler, they define their generation in LCK. Like we've got Knight and Kanavi who are now defining the new era of LPL. I think we're starting to see that come through, and that's kind of where I have them marked.
So you put them in the same category as like Showmaker and Nuguri.
Yeah, I think they're insane. I think they're so damn clean. I love watching them. I think they're insanely strong.
Yeah, I'd agree. I'd agree with that honestly. And then I think TSM, honestly, it's so difficult to. This is the thing. Like, we haven't seen TSM since NA playoffs against NA teams. Like, I don't know where TSM matches up in this, because like when you're under the pressure that these laners can put on, like when you're against a team like Fnatic that made it to LEC finals, when you get even like LGD, if they can look as good as they did today, totally different story, right? Can they do that in a best of one? Who knows? Honestly, who knows? But if they can, it becomes very difficult. So this group is the most difficult to call. Let's round out this talk. Let's just put our rankings in. I'm gonna say Fnatic, TSM,
Ooh.
Gen G, LGD. I'm saying TSM makes it out of groups.
Yeah, that's
Based on how
a bold,
Liquid performed, based on how fucking good Liquid looked like the best team in players.
Yeah.
And
But
LGD looked like the worst team in players.
I know, but some things crack under pressure, some things turn into diamonds.
It's true.
And I think tactical turned into a diamond.
But I think TSM
Challenger.
looked amazing compared to Liquid in playoffs.
Yeah.
So
But
I would say that
don't know.
TSM have a very real shot of making it, because the meta is pretty slow right now, and they're playing against teams that like to play pretty slow. TSM likes to play pretty slow.
I think Gen G is the epitome of playing slow though. Like if I look at any team, like who do I want? Like obviously JDG can play a very slow game as well, Group B, but Group C, Gen G. If this is a slower meta, it's Gen G that I give the favor to. So my headspace is kind of Gen G, Fnatic, TSM, and then LGD.
Wait, you put Gen G first?
I have Gen G first.
Damn.
Yeah,
Fair enough.
I saw a few of Fnatic's games. I think they do look good, but definitely weaker than they have years previous. And I think Gen G's controlling style can do a lot. I think their mid jungle 2v2 stands up a lot better. Like I think Selfmade is probably the best jungler in LEC at the moment.
Oh,
But
for
definitely,
sure, for sure.
yeah. But I think the mid jungle, like Clid BDD versus Nemesis Selfmade, like I'm giving that to Clid and BDD. I think they just take that, and from that can.
I'm giving it to Selfmade and BDD.
Yeah.
I think Selfmade and BDD are both really good. I think Clid's really good, but not as good as Selfmade. And then I think Nemesis is struggling. Yeah, we'll see that, because actually one thing that's worth mentioning is Nemesis loves control mages. The meta is set and control mages basically, with a couple of shenanigans in there as well. Like this meta could actually kind of work for Vigar, and Nemesis is sort of a Vigar one trick.
The thing for Nemesis though is that now I could be wrong again. Again, I haven't watched a huge amount of LEC. He always seemed like, oh yeah, cool. He like Veigar, he's got his control mages, but very much a centered on the mid lane kind of guy. Whereas I think I look a lot of the other mid laners who are like, oh yeah, we do control mages, but we move, like we go elsewhere,
Nemesis
or we have a
just chills,
support.
yeah.
Yeah, and I think we have supports that play towards them. Now, I know Hylissang does play quite a bit towards mid lane, but I think if we're starting to see bot lanes that are going to be able to contest them and then move, I think still I give the edge to Gen G. But I still think Fnatic come out second. But then I think that's where TSM starts to fall off is just like the early game map movement. I think TSM, as you said, do play a much slower game, but I think I give the edge to Fnatic with the ability to play a much faster pace in the early stages and pick up some early advantages.
I'm gonna have to wait and see, mate.
Oh yeah,
I can only make this
I mean, this
call
is
when
all
I'm
speculation.
clicking those pick'ems, like, because that could change at the last possible second, and it probably will. We'll have to see. Well, I can definitely see where you go from with Gen G there. So we're in accord. Wait, no, you're Gen G first, Fnatic second.
NG, Fnatic,
I'm Fnatic first, Gen
TSM,
G's.
LGD.
I was Fnatic TSM, Gen G
Yeah,
LGD. You were Gen G, Fnatic,
yeah,
TSM,
TSM,
LGD.
LGD. I love the way we're just like LGD. You're done, lad.
They are done. Like if playoffs and regionals and the whole
Yeah.
split and playoffs is anything to go by, which it probably should be.
I love the way everyone's like IG died for this. It's like no, V5s died for this.
Yeah,
This
what
is
I tweeted this like, hey guys, do you remember the two times that LGD crushed IG into the dirt?
Yeah.
Like, come on, Rookie died for this. IG died for themselves. IG
Yeah.
did not deserve this tournament. Rookie deserved this tournament. Anyway,
Yeah.
different conversation for a different time. Group D, let's finish off this whole shebang with Group D, because this one is definitely the hardest to call. I think I'm just going to get it out of the way. Top esports, number one in the group. I think you can agree with that
I think
one.
we're both agreed.
Like, we don't even really
I
need to
don't
go
know an
into it,
analyst
but
who's not like that. Yeah.
incredibly strong lanes. They could win through all three lanes. Karsa is the big question mark. Karsa and Yu Yanja for me. Obviously, Yu Yanja looks a bit weaker as like the newest player on the team. But Karsa, when you think about his jungle pool, it ain't matter. Like the Trundles, the Lee Sin, like these are not picks that are good right now. And he's not
So
that
I
much of a
think
carry.
he's not a carry, but I think like it was Clement who put me onto this. I had a chat with him a while ago. Was when you look at how like his stats all look terrible. Like everything when you look at Carson looks abysmal.
Except
But
his
the thing
smile.
is, true. But he's actually the pressure he creates. The reason those stats look so poorly is because he's all about control. Like he just wants to make sure he knows exactly where the enemy jungler is. He's going to be on strong early game jewelers, so then he can shut down that opponent. And I think when we're looking at a meta of some champions like the Lilia, I mean, not so much the Evelyn anymore, but some of these more like even Hecarim, kind of to a certain extent, is like these champions that don't duel very well. I actually think Karsa bringing out a lot of the like the Lee Sins, well, Graves is obviously met at the moment, but definitely strong dueling champions still fits top esports, because top esports is not about jungle. Top esports is let's enable our three really strong lanes. The bigger question mark for me is Yuyanja,
Mm-hmm.
but he has also been a
He
person
just
that
play
is
Yubi.
yeah, but he's also been a support that like has consistently improved
Yeah.
over the course of the split. But we're hitting worlds. Like we're now at the focal point. Yuyanja is a rookie. Like he joined way back in spring. He looked real shaky. He has steadily and slowly improved. But you're now on the world stage. Like that is a very different beast. And I think like that's kind of something that we didn't touch on for Huanfeng and Sunu and stuff. Like these guys are rookies, and when you're going up against some of these guys, there is the potential that you end up like DRX is full of a bunch of veterans. UOL have shown that they don't care. They're just going to play their game. They're going to have fun and they're going to look really damn good doing it. And the same on FlightQuest, you got a bunch of veterans there as well. So I think there is the potential here that maybe Yuanjia starts to slip, and that's when we start to see
I
them,
think
especially against like Walter and Ignar. You know that's an aggressive bot lane. Like they're gonna look to kill you, but
yeah, but
if Yuanjia can hold up, I think we're good.
I don't know, man. Like I think even if he's a rookie, like he's alongside Jackie Love. If he does start to in it a little bit, then we'll just stick him on Yumi. We'll stick him on Braum. Whatever, no worries. We'll play Jin Braum bottom lane. No stress. They can be weak side.
Yeah.
But like I think that even in the first off, I actually don't think Hugh Yanja is gonna run it. Like even if he
I
doesn't
don't.
perform
No.
super well, like he can just play Thresh. He can just play Braum. He can just play Yumi. There's a few picks he has, and Nautilus as well. Like that, he can just chill. He doesn't have to be super mechanically good. So long as he doesn't run it, the rest of the team is so good that he doesn't have to be exceptional. You know, he can just be a role player, and that's okay. I think
And I
that
think he. Sorry, go on.
I was just going to say I think that he can tick those boxes enough that Jackie Love Knight 369 can go nuts, and the
Yeah,
same for Casa.
and that's the big point. Like the one you hit on is that this is the Trident team, right? They have
Mhm.
3 lanes that they can play through, and even if we get like Impact, who's a big Shen player, a lot of LEC who's big Shen players. If we start to see this style, top esports is more than capable of going, cool, we're just going to play through top side. We're
I
going to
will
play through
say
mid. Like there's always that opportunity.
I will say they're not against Impact because Impact's
No, I know,
not on
but this is I just
flags.
mean Shen players in general,
Oh,
tank players and stuff like that. It's like they don't have to play through just bot side. Like they're perfectly capable of sticking Jackie Love and Ezreal.
Mhm.
We'll stick the Braum in beside him. Weak side lane, cool. 369's on Jax, 369's on a Kale if they end up against an Orin. Like there's a
369's
lot
on whatever the fuck he feels like at the time.
yeah, exactly. So I think this is a team that is the least capable of being like locked into a certain style because they have so many people that can carry. And I think the beauty of it is that obviously Knight is just insane in the mid lane.
Yeah.
Like that's why Karsa's, as we said, his stats aren't good because he's just controlling the enemy jungle, making sure that he can't get involved in the lanes because then 369 is going to win because 369 definitely gets a bit of help, but I mean, Knight's just going to win his lane. If you just leave them in a vacuum, uh, even against players like BDD, he was perfectly fine in MSC. So, yeah, I think that's definitely where top esports come out on top.
Let's
As we just
just
spent this entire segment talking about top
I'm going to
esports.
take a second here and just quickly talk about the fact that the mid laners in this group are actually
Are
fucking
stacked.
stacked, right? Because you've got Chovy on DRX, who's LS's
Yeah.
golden boy, but he's fucking insane. You got obviously Knight is insane.
Yeah.
But then you got Power of Evil, who similarly to Bjergsen has kind of had a bit of a resurgence in like he's an old legend that has finally started to really pack a punch again. And then in Unicorns of Love, we've got No Man's who's come out of nowhere and started just popping faces. Like, I don't know how No Man's is going to be able to perform against literally some of the best in the world. Like, Knight and Chovy are very much in the conversation for best in the world, alongside maybe Showmaker and rest in peace Rookie. But yeah, like this group is stacked. Let's move on from top esports. And let's talk about the rest of the group. So we're both putting top esports number 1. Let's place the rest of the group. I am going to throw a bit of a spicy prediction in this one.
Okay.
Because even though Chovy is on DRX, even though Deft is on DRX, I think Unicorns of Love is going to make it out of this group.
Ooh.
Because
I thought you were going to give me a FlyQuest for a second.
No,
I
mate.
was like,
I think FlyQuest comes 4th. I think DRX comes 3rd. And I think that Unicorns of Love comes 2nd. Because Unicorns of Love are very Moscow 5. The way that they play is not very similar to... I think the only team that's particularly similar to them is G2. And even that is like there are some significant differences. I think they play their own game that is quite different to everyone else's game. But importantly, they stick the fuck together. So many teams, when a player's lost, will be like, all right, this was a 40-60 play. Let's not do this. Unicorns of Love don't give a shit. If someone's caught out, they're like, united front, like, let's get in there and save our man. And I love that kind of League of Legends. This is the kind of team that is just going to charge in and fuck you up. And Dragon X, if they want to play slow, that kind of style beats that. If Flycast want to play slow, that kind of style beats that. I can see this team getting second.
DRX versus UOL is going to be the only game where Zig's a contested pick.
Yeah, right?
It's like, because you can have Deft who plays it. You've got everyone
Yeah,
on
true.
apparently on UOL can play it. So, yeah, I think it's going to be super interesting. Like, I think the bigger question is, like, which Piosik shows up, right? Because Piosik can be a little bit all over the
True.
joint. So, I think if Piosik has a good series and like can play off of Chovy, I think DRX can definitely take it. But I mean, Anasik and No Man's have been one of the
Ananasic.
strongest. Ananasik.
And
Yes.
all the H's are N's, basically.
Yeah, Ananasik has had they've been like one of the best mid jungle 2v2s in play-in so far. And you've got Gadget who's being insanely strong in the bottom lane. So honestly, I think the biggest question there is like, does Piosik show up? Because I think definitely Chovy is going to play. Like Chovy should dominate No Man's. I mean, with his whole legacy and story that we have for Chovy, I think definitely he should be able to take over that lane. But if Piosik isn't there to support him, Ananasic is just going to show up. He's going to take over, give No Man's 3 kills on Cassidy, and then from that point forward, I mean, what else do you do?
Yeah, I agree with that one. I actually think that with the way that the meta is shaping out and the fact that it's best of ones, I don't know, man.
Yeah.
I think the stars are aligning for UOL. I can feel it. So I'm going top esports, UOL, DRX, FlyQuest. That's where I'm at. Give me your 4.
I think UOL. I think if there's any team here that's going to give up a game, it's going to be Top Esports.
Yeah, top esports are going 5-1
Realistically.
for sure. Like, I do not believe the top esports will go 6-0.
And it's going to be the UOL.
They're going to do something fucking stupid as well. They're just going to, like, int the draft or just, like, take a 2v5 or just some dumb shit that loses them a game because they know that they're the favorites and they're like, let's just fuck around.
Fun. Yeah.
Let's see if we can make a montage play. Like, honestly, I genuinely, I just know that they're going to lose at least one game.
I have a feeling it's going to be Jackie Love who tries to go for, like, this amazing play bot side and then just runs straight into, like, Gadget and Santos. It's just like, wait a second.
Yeah.
Or even Deft and Carry. Like, that's a strong bot lane. Like,
yeah, Kerry
I
is a
don't know.
guy we've not really
I
talked
still
about.
think it'll be top esports first. But yeah, I think, like, Carry is insanely strong.
Yeah.
So, like, the bot lanes in this pool are relatively stacked. Like, I think Santos is definitely the weaker portion of UOL.
I want to quickly touch on FlyQuest, actually, now you mentioned the bottom lanes, because FlyQuest bottom lane is actually really good. But they're against some of the best Wild Turtle is a pretty great AD carry, right? He's an aggressive AD carry. He wants to win the 2v2. Fantastic. So does Jacula, except he's the best in his role. So does Deft, except he's the best in his role, right? Like, the guy and Gadget, obviously, I don't know how Gadget stacks up against the very best, but, like, Jacula and Deft, like, they have defined this role. These are two of the best historical AD carries ever. Not even just this year, like, ever, historically. So, like, can Wild Turtle stack up to that? Can Gadget stack up to that? That's a huge question.
Like, this is the bloodiest bot lane. Like, Deft and Carrier want to kill you, while Turtle and Ignar definitely want to kill you. I mean, Gadget and Santos have shown they're not afraid from a fight.
And you've got Jacula, who fucking knows what they want. They're just fucking around, man. They're willing to scrap.
I don't know. This is going to be a crazy group to watch. I think it will be top DRX, UOL, FlyQuest. I think the biggest issue I have with FlyQuest is I think PoE is actually surprisingly probably one of the weaker, if not the weakest mid laner in this. Same for Santorin. I think he's if Piosik shows up, I think he's the weakest jungler in this. And then Solo I think can do okay.
Yeah.
But I think just the mid and jungle 2v2 is just so much stronger on pretty much
I think the question is just how well UOL shows up in regards to those topics. Is like, was UOL just styling on Plains teams, or are they actually legit good? Is the big question at that point. So I don't know. That's a question that I don't think we're going to be able to answer here tonight.
Bot lane though is just going to be a bloodbath. Like, I cannot wait to see it. So yeah, I still think DRX coming on top. I think Deft and Carry are so good. Carry in particular is just so damn good. I have Carry like right as one of the best supports in Worlds. I think he is so insanely good.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I think it'll be top. I think it'll be top esports or DRX. Honestly, I just think DRX is less stupid. I think DRX would take first, just because top don't end up messing up a game. But
I think top beats DRX every time.
But yeah, I think it's those two. Whatever fashion it comes about, like I'm not saying top esports. Like everyone's like top esports the best in the world. They are. They're really damn good. But sometimes they're a bit it. So
I agree
I
with
have a
that.
feeling,
They're not
I
always
have a feeling
serious.
there's going to
They've
be
got
kind of
Dracula,
best
they've got
of one.
Knight, they've got
Yeah.
Carcer. They're happy to mess about a little bit. All right, so
Exactly.
let's just bear in mind it's best of ones and take it from there. So let's round this up, Dagda, and I've just decided, as always on our first episode, we're going to follow our tradition of finishing off our final drink. So
Where are you?
Dagda,
Empty. Hang on. Yeah, I'm empty. All right.
you're empty.
Well, I had to double check the 2 cans that were there if they're good.
Okay, well, just polish that last little bit off. I'll polish this last
Right.
little bit off. Cheers,
Cheers,
mate.
bud.
Have a good one. It's
Been a
been a pleasure.
You had a lot more to go than I did.
I didn't have that. I had about a quarter of a pint. All right. That's going to be that. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us. I have been at Hey Munchables. You can follow me on Twitter here. He has been at Tagdacast. I can't point to his one exactly because he's on a different camera in a different country. But he can point to his little tag, which is, there-ish. And then underneath us both is Excoundrel. He's a little old legend from the UK scene. LEC host, EU Masters caster, Twitch Rivals caster, overall extraordinaire, and legend of esports. Give him a follow. Give him all the love. Go to his YouTube and subscribe because the guy posts daily, I think, on YouTube.
Oh, and really good.
He's grinding
as
it.
well.
Like, seriously, if you like TFT as well, he's got tons of advice on TFT. I'm burping like a madman because I just downed half a pint. So with that, I'm going to call it here. This has been BEVVIES with the boys. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed coming along. For everyone that has followed the stream, thank you very much. Gina, thank you very much for the 100 bits as well. That's going to be that from us. Dagda, any final things that you want to say to our audience before we leave?
No, thank you very much for joining us. It's been a pleasure to bring you the first episode, and hopefully we'll bring you a lot more. And yeah, hit us up on Twitter, and we can enjoy Worlds together.
Absolutely. All right, well, we're going to call it here. If you're watching on YouTube, click like, click subscribe. There's a bell, I think. I'm pretty sure. Other than
You're
that,
so good at
we'll see you next time.